Hey, praise the Lord. This is Pastor Leevone M of the House of the Lord Church in the city of Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm coming to you not on the behalf of our young adult ministry, but I'm coming to you as a citizen in the United States of America in the city where I reside in, which is Chesapeake, Virginia. This is Black History Month, and I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk about a few things on my mind. Originally, I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is a predominantly community of Caucasians. I've been blessed, I would say, to have the opportunity to live in the city of Portsmouth about 30 years ago, lived there about almost 4 years, and I have owned property in the city of Chesapeake in the South Norfolk area, going on 14 years, and reside in Chesapeake going on 8 years. There's a lot of issues in the African American community. When I say African American, I mean predominantly the part of the community, the city, where is predominantly African American. There's a lot of neglect by the city as far as maintaining the areas, the streets, the sidewalks, the overgrown trees, the flooding in the streets, the proper signage, and all the above. For going on the last 2 years myself, I've been calling the city and complaining about the conditions that have been neglected for who knows 50 or 60 years. Also, not only have I talked to the city, but I've also talked to the citizens who live in the cities, who live in the African American community, which are Black people. And I found the problems on both sides, of course. First of all, the cities, the municipal staff have not done due diligence for Black taxpayers as well as white taxpayers in making sure that our communities are getting the same treatments. In other words, we pay taxes as African American citizens, those of us who do pay taxes, like Caucasians who pay their taxes. We deserve the same conditions in our streets, sidewalks, trees trimmed, streets should not be flooded, sidewalks should not be, broken up, busted up, and the potholes, which cause a lot of automobile damage. Myself, I have over $3,000 worth of automobile damage, which I would contribute to the potholes in the city of Chesapeake, South Norfolk area. And I brought all these things to the attention of the mayor of the city, Mr. Rick West, and he was even nice enough, Mr. Rick West, Mayor West, to come to my house and walk the streets with me to look at the conditions. And he was amazed himself about the neglect in the South Norfolk area of Chesapeake. And so I don't hold the mayor accountable for every detail, but I hold you, my brother and my sister, and the mayor and all the city staff, those who work with public works, to give South Norfolk, Portsmouth, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, Suffolk, Newport News, Hampton, wherever you are, the same treatment that you do in the predominantly white communities. It is a tiring work. It is draining to be on the phone over and over, talking to different departments, asking for some type of response to address the neglect and abandonment in the areas where we live. And I realized, as I said, by talking not only to the mayor and those who work in the city of Chesapeake, but also talking to the citizens, my neighbors, and found out through talking that many of them have automobile damage, car damage to their vehicles as well, but the information is only known by communicating it. That's why I'm communicating with you all. If you realize that you're having a regular damage to your car underneath, tire, axle, CV axle, things like that, tie rods. I'm giving some names of some things that I'm aware of. Many times it is because of the potholes where you live. And then when your car needs a front end alignment, costs $100 at least, most places you go to. It's because where you live, where you're driving all the time. And some of you just don't know how to drive. I'm trying to say that as kindly as I know how. You see a speed bump, which is not a pothole, you should slow down because you're tearing up your car, and you can do up to $1,000 worth of damage just riding over the speed bump like it's smooth highway. It's not. But other than that, I'm speaking of the neglect, the potholes, and the curbs, the grass. All of these things are areas of neglect by the cities, municipal staff that we live in, where we live. And I found out as a citizen, doing all that I can do, I go out daily, sometimes 2 and 3 times a day where I live, and pick up the trash that other citizens throw in the street. Many times we would like to think it's the children, but I believe most of the trash that I see in the street is thrown in the street by adults. And, we have a lot to do as a people if we're going to rise up and leave a legacy to our children as far as how to live as citizens in this United States of America. We can spend the rest of our lives talking about what white people have not done and what they should do. And in many cases, we are right about the neglect, the racism, the prejudice, all of that. In many cases, or most cases, we are correct. But we also have some issues of our own. We're not concerned in most cases about doing something about the conditions where we live. And so when I say I go outside and pick up the trash, well, of course I didn't throw the trash in the street, but I was raised by a mother that taught us to clean up where you live. Start somewhere. The best place to start is where you live. Anybody can complain about what the city's not doing, and as I said, we are right about the city, the municipal staff not doing what they're doing. But what are you doing, my sister? What are you doing, my brother? Are you contributing to the neglect, to the abandonment, to the abuse, to the trash in your street? Are you contributing to the poor appearance of the community that you live in? Or are you doing something to clean it up? And so in order for me to be able to say something to you, I have to be an example myself. And that's why I'm coming up here. I see myself out there picking up trash, and often the neighbors put couches and mattresses and everything and leave it out there. Well, it's not my job to call the city and ask them to come to pick it up, but I don't like looking at it. So I call every time I see, or just about any time I see it. I'm saying, brother, sister, we have an obligation to clean up where we live and to not just try to move. When we move, what we are doing is breaking down our communities as African American people. We're dividing ourselves, and some of you believe by moving away to a community where there are less black people that you're going to be better off. But that's absolutely not the truth. The reason many of you why you want to leave the African American community or do not want to reside in the African American community is because the people who live in the African American community are just like you. Yeah, they're just like you. You're lazy, and you don't have any interest in doing something as a leader to your people, your children. If nobody else you see as being your people, your children, your nieces and nephews. Be a leader to your children, your nieces and nephews, and don't just live in a place where trash is in the street and you say because you didn't throw it out there, it's not your responsibility. We know it's the city's responsibility, but we also know that the city or the cities where we live in the predominantly African American communities, they're not going to do what they're supposed to do, especially when you only have one or two people who's complaining about it, and this neglect is over 50 or 60 years. So I call upon you, my sister, my brother, African American sister and brother, to get on board and let us clean up our communities. Call City Hall.